Hey, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you have had your coffee. And let's talk a bit about how would you approach solving problems in software development when you have no idea how to start. So let's say you have some task that you get at work and you're like, gee, how do I even, what is this? So the most important thing to understand at first is how to break your task, which is big, in a big pile of unknown, into smaller segments that are much more approachable. And let's see, what does that mean exactly, right? So let's say you have a task A, which is like this segment that is just absolutely, we have no idea how to start it. Break it into smaller segments, right, that are doable. And when these are completed, then you have completed the whole task. So let's say this is a sad face because we don't know how to start it. Then we have a smiley face because we know how to solve these things. But what if this part is also unknown, right? Then the point is that you would take this task and you would again break it into smaller segments that are also much more doable. This is really all there is to it. What does this mean? Let's say you have to do some car dealership database design. And you have no idea how to do that. Well, let's write it down, because the brain works much better when it sees, with visual hints. So you write it down: car dealership database design. What would be the segments? To finish the database design for a car dealership, you need to understand what the car dealership is composed of. So maybe it has something like, and you break it down into showroom and stock of cars. Then you have mechanical service. Maybe it has some body repair services. Maybe it has some, maybe it stores cars. Maybe it has some storage for older, for used cars, right? So now it's much more approachable, because you first start with the showroom, and then you start with then you continue with the stock of cars, and then you create a database design for the mechanical stuff. So these are like the segments that you would break this task into, and then it's much more approachable. So always when you don't know how to do something, just think what that thing is made of, break it in smaller things, and when you solved each and every one of these, you have solved the entire segment. Okay, now that was quite the most obvious. That is the strategy number one: breakdown in segments, in smaller segments, right? Strategy number two would be, you still don't know how to deal with things. Well, the brain works much better with visual patterns. So what you should do is you should sketch. So you should take whatever components you have, and then you should just draw them, literally. It doesn't matter that you're not good at drawing. Nobody cares. This is all for your brain to see concepts better, to like visualize them on some paper, on some whiteboard. Go to some whiteboard if you have a whiteboard. Take a paper, take a pencil, just sketch something. Sketch the components, because it's much easier to understand how to approach things when you also have visual patterns. So let's say in the example with a car dealership, you would represent the showroom as some circle, then you have the stock of cars, maybe some, I don't know, some lines coming in. These are like the cars. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant. You don't need to be good at drawing. Just draw something that gives you an idea of how do these components relate together. Because when you put them in geometrical shapes and figures, then it's much easier for the brain to understand how they connect together. So sketch the components the task, the bigger task is made of, right? And then, okay, let's say you still have no idea how to do this task. Well, first of all, you need to go back to the, or maybe this should be even the first, actually. Read the, reread, you should make sure that you understood everything about the task, like go back and read the requirements, and really focus on each detail and make sure you understand what you need to do. Because a lot of the times, just not knowing how to solve something means you simply haven't taken the time to really read the requirement. Like you just don't know all the factors involved that you need to find solutions for, because you never sat down and really read the whole thing. You kind of skimmed through the task and you sort of have a rough idea, but you haven't gone into the details. So reread the requirements and try to answer some questions like, do you have full info on the task? Right? Do you really have full specs, requirements of the task, right? And ask somebody like, hey, go talk to your product manager or something. Hey, this piece of the task is not that well formulated. Like, let's work with it together. Let's see how we can phrase it better, or it's just too vague. A lot of the times, tasks are vague in the software development world, and it's nobody's fault. It's just people are human. Mistakes are human. It's fine. Just go to the person that wrote the task and tell them, the senior that gave you the task, or the product manager, or product owner, whatever, and tell them, hey, this needs a bit more detail. Let's work together to solve that, right? So, and by the way, it's good to say, let's work together on solving that. Don't just say, hey, fix this. Be a team player, right? And understand that people, by default, assume that people want to do a good job, but maybe they just have a very busy schedule. They just forgot some detail that you might really find critical. So nobody's against you. Everybody just wants to get their work day done as efficient as possible and go home. So, don't take it personal. Tasks might not have full details. So just work with the people that wrote them and get the full details. Okay? So work with a task writer and get full details, right? So reread requirements and make sure you have every detail that you need. Break down in smaller segments and sketch. One more thing, when you still don't know how, let's say you did these steps, you still have no idea how to solve this. Well, ask somebody, because people have, it's fine to ask. But the thing with asking, like, don't just ask, don't just go to your senior and say, how do I solve this? How do I solve this? This is a bad question, right? What is a good question? I need to solve this. I tried A and B. What do you think? This is a good question, right? Show that you really tried something and be a team player, basically. Just don't be, like arrogant and try to get people, like don't dismiss don't dismiss yourself. I don't know how to solve this at all. Don't dismiss others with stuff like, hey, you just gave me some task that doesn't make any sense, or, be a team player. Like, I want to show that you want to solve this problem. I really want to solve it. I have tried this and that, and it just doesn't work. So what do you think about what I tried? This is a good question to ask, because it shows involvement. It shows that you really want to get it done. This is what you want to show. Show that you really want to get it done. Show that you want to get involved. Show that you want to be proactive and to solve it. It's in everybody's interest that you that you solve it. You also want to solve it. You want to show that you do a good job. You want to be accepted in the team. So yeah, even on Stack Overflow, if you want to ask something, the first thing that you need to post is what you tried already, right? Another thing that you might have a challenge with is maybe you know all these factors. So you went through this entire list, you read the requirements, you made sure they are broken down in smaller segments. You know that they are doable. You have the components that you need. You have sketched everything. You have asked, and you still don't know how to solve something, right? So this happens. This might be that you simply have, maybe you need to solve some part of the software that you have never interacted with, and you have never really done any task that is similar or related to that. Let's say you need to add some reactive functionality with RxJS. It's a reactive functional library, and it's quite common in stuff like, you know, reactive programming. Angular uses this a lot, and maybe you need to do something with this library and you have no idea how to use those functions. You need to scale down your task. So you need to scale down your task to the smallest related example and just solve that, right? Let's say you have an array of 1,000 items, and for each element of that array you need to do some reactive programming and so on. So make a smaller array, hard code the array with just 2 items, A and B, and go to some RxJS playground for your language. I think there are free ones on the web that you can use, and just try to use the functions, use the RxJS functions on that small array, right? So understand what the functions do first. When you don't know how to combine those functions, because they can be quite difficult, try to understand each function. What does it do? Use each function by itself on the array, on your array, and understand what does it do first, right? So in order to use multiple tools or RxJS functions to create something complex, you need to first understand the tools themselves. Take a much smaller data input, hard code it, just do 2 elements. Maybe you have some types of objects that you need to transform somehow, and there are 1,000 in the actual tasks. So mock those objects, mock your objects into a smaller array, right? And go to this RxJS playground and use the functions by themselves. So really scale down your task until it's really small and approachable. Like, don't just stare at the big data input and, how do I do this? I should write this in caps. Scale down your task to the smallest related example, right? And, ultimately, to be good at something, everybody that you see is good at something, they achieved it through something called repetition. There is no other secret. Stop trying to find any other secrets. There is no other strategy that is quicker. Just do that thing. Hammer at it every single day. Or, close to every single day. Just do it a lot. And that's really all there is to it to get good at anything. Just do that thing a lot of times and try to vary the data input, vary the parameters. Try to see how to use it in various contexts. Programming is no different than any other skill that you acquire through repetition. Hope you liked my first vlog. and subscribe, and let me know if you want to discuss some other concepts. And yeah, peace.